Do you think it was reasonable that thing you did?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Boys! Is that what he says? Ludwig asked me to make a cosplay for him. And the cosplay, to be precise, is Star Nemesis Fiddlesticks from League of Legends.
The Fiddler. The
Fiddler!
So, I am going to show you how to make a 3-month project and shave that all the way down to 28 days. Pray this won't spark a desire to play League of Legends again. First step to turning a streamer into a cosplayer is actually just getting a hold of him. I needed his measurements, and unfortunately, this turned out to be insanely difficult. Measurements in hand, I used a mannequin to create a custom form pattern of it. Then I had this padded measured mannequin form, and I kind of just got to drawing the patterns for the leg armor, the chest plate, the arm pieces, and I just used the plastic wrap duct tape method. I drew one side out and then mirrored them to make each piece symmetrical. Once I had this blueprint to work off of, I began the foam cutting process. Once cut out, I assembled everything via contact cement, beveled all the edges, ensured there was no seam lines, and added smaller details to each piece as needed. Once sanded down and heat sealed, I primed each piece with Plasti Dip. From there, I needed a plan. The rest of the build was definitely needing to be done, and quite frankly, with the shortness of the deadline, I was stressing. I wanted to make something I was proud of, but also comfortable, wearable, and modular for a non-cosplayer like Ludwig. Many pieces of this costume required custom 3D modeling, and it's quite the learning process. I had to ensure my deadline by waking up at the perfect times, no matter the time, to guarantee each 3D printer I had was working around the clock. I started knocking out the simpler pieces with the fur neck attachment, which included the bows and a lock. I made a wire structured foam ring around the neck and covered it with fur. Then went on to make a large blue bow out of foam and a smaller pink bow out of fabric, then attaching the lock to the front of that. From there, I moved on to the shirt. I added heat transfer vinyl in the shape of Fiddlestick's stomach area and the back of his neck with my Cricut and my heat press. And from there, I added foam bevels to create a cage-like Fiddlesticks hat. After each 3D printed piece had finished, they were glued and plastic welded together for stability. In order to catch those up with the rest of the armor to be ready for paint, I had to spend several full days sanding layer lines and priming. Thanks to my settings, I only really needed 2 cycles of priming and sanding. Once all of the foam armor and the prints were primed and sanded, it was time for everything to get its paint job. The main pieces of the paint job primarily required a base coat of white and then a pearlized Createx paint with airbrushing. Once each piece had its base black or its pearlized white, it began the labor of taping off each diamond and detail, airbrushing it with teal Createx paint or other colors like pink, teals, or even the full rainbow. My favorite part was definitely like taping everything off and like airbrushing the pearlized stuff onto it, because the pearlized came out so beautiful and sparkly. Some of my struggles was definitely like sanding for hours and hours and like priming and then sanding it some more for days on end. Really broke me in a way. I made some orbs with foam additions of different sizes for the pauldrons and the helmet. I installed LEDs for the eyes and the mouth, as well as padding for the inside to fit properly. The prints failed so many times, and it was like a 5-day print. Not to mention like the struggles of making sure his big old noggin would fit in there. The Scythe being the largest was the most difficult to tackle. The Scythe consisted of 3 things. It was PVC, 3D print, and overall just a bunch of layers of primer and paint. It was several full days of sanding, and it definitely took like a whole week to print these. The monster arm included a PVC base handle, as well as a foam galaxy sleeve with smaller hands attached via magnets to create a 6-foot long arm. The last step was the stilts. I bought some Skyrunner kangaroo stilts and primed and painted the set to match Fiddlestick's legs.
Do you want to say what I was saying when I was like, Ludwig's?
All right, let go. I ended up having a male model with similar dimensions try on the cosplay with the stilts to make sure that comfort, modularity, and just work out all of the kinks with that to ensure that it was wearable and comfortable for Ludwig. There were so many smaller crises I had to navigate, such as just completely having to remake and modify models for fit and function, and having so many failed spaghetti prints. This cosplay was shipped in 6 boxes and was insanity to pack. I made several custom boxes to fit the larger items, and we had to next day air the packages due to time constraints, and overall, it took way too long for me to pack all this stuff. stuff.
Do you think the cosplay was reasonable?
I think paying an artist what they deserve is reasonable.
A third of that was to shipping.
Congrats on hitting platinum, Ludwig. This is such a cool way to celebrate it, and I am overjoyed with the opportunity that you gave me. I genuinely hope he practices stilts so he can do a full shebang one day. I had a sneaking feeling he overestimated the difficulty of stilts, but I definitely can't function in stilts myself. Ow! Whoever the photographer was did a phenomenal job on the lighting and the angles. Shout out to Yingling for excellent communication through the last half of the commission bit. And man, maybe he could have a career in cosplay. Really glad he didn't commission me to do a moo.
The fiddler is more iconic than
I
a
think I
moo-moo.
watched maybe the last 5-6 days straight,
well,
Ludwig,
it was
and I don't think
probably-
I saw you
it was
play fiddle
probably-
once.
Guys, we probably shouldn't talk about League of Legends anyway.
I know this wasn't necessarily a tutorial, but I'm glad you made it through my 28 days of no sleep and stress con crunch to craft fiddlesticks for Ludwig. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to comment down below. You can find me on Instagram, X, Facebook, Patreon, YouTube, and Twitch, and I would really appreciate your continued support. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!